Welcome to this week's lecture, Chapter 3, Information Systems, Organizations, and Strategy. Our objectives this week is to identify and describe important features of organizations that managers need to know about in order to build and use information systems successfully. Demonstrate how Porter's competitive forces models helps companies develop competitive strategies using information systems. We want to explain how the value chain and value web models help businesses identify opportunities for strategic information systems. We want to demonstrate how information systems help businesses use synergies, core competencies, and network-based strategies to achieve competitive advantage. And finally, we want to assess the challenges posed by strategic information systems and management solutions. Change their business strategies over time, or at least fine-tune them. This vignette illustrates how businesses who were once the most successful in their industry must continually change their core strategy in response to changes brought about by the internal and external environment. So Chapter 3 describes how organizations and information systems work together, or sometimes against each other. The idea, of course, is to keep them in sync, but that's not always possible. We'll look at the nature of organizations and how they relate to information systems. So what is an organization? An organization is very similar to information systems that we described in Chapter 1. Remember Figure 1.4 from the previous chapter? Compare it to Figure 3.2 of this chapter. These two figures may have many things in common. Both information systems and organizations require inputs and some sort of processing. Both have outputs and both depend on feedback for successful completion of the loop. Information systems use data as their main ingredient and organizations rely on people. However, the similarities are remarkable. Both are a structured method of turning raw products, which can be data and people, into useful entities, otherwise, or other words, information and producers. Think of some of the organizations you've been involved in. Didn't each of them have a structure, even if it wasn't readily apparent? Perhaps the organization seemed a bit chaotic, or didn't seem to have any real purpose. Maybe that was due to poor input, broken down processing, or unclear output. It could be very well that feedback was ignored or missing altogether. Many times organizations are turned upside down when the new information systems are brought in. It's not because the system is all wrong for the business. Usually it's because the system throws the delicate balance of rights, privileges, obligations, responsibilities, and feelings out of kilter. For instance, the marketing department manager used to see that all monthly reports about new customers before any of her employees did. She had a chance to digest the information and formulate responses to questions before disseminating the data to anyone else. After a new information system was integrated throughout the company, all the data regarding new and old customers is now available immediately to everyone in the organization. Now, the marketing department manager gets bombarded with questions and comments before she's even seen the numbers. The class you're enrolled in is an organization of sorts, isn't it? Think about it. How many of the following characteristics fits this class? How many fit any organization you're in? Clear division of labor, hierarchy of authority, absent rules and procedures, impartial judgments, technical qualifications for positions, maximum organizational efficiency. These characteristics describe organizations that are called bureaucracies, which most of us think as slow, cumbersome, or unprogressive. That isn't necessarily so. Many organizations have bureaucratic characteristics and operate very well. Successful organizations develop efficient routines for producing goods and services. Successful organizations are able to reduce costs and win with a competitive advantage over others because these routines are built into business processes. However, some standard operating procedures, also known as SOPs, politics, and culture are so ingrained in an organization that they actually hinder the success of the group because they do not allow people to change their routines and processes as they should. The blue spheres in this diagram are individual routines, which together constitute a business process. A firm can be seen as a collection of these processes. Organizational politics. Each person in an organization ultimately has his own goals. These goals may be aligned very well with organizational goals, but perhaps they aren't. The bottom line is each person comes into an organization with a different concern and perspective. When these viewpoints clash with others, the end result is organizational politics, and politics can essentially kill organizational change necessary for incorporating new information systems. Can you describe examples where an organization politics might hamper a firm's ability to succeed? Can you describe examples where organizational politics might hamper a firm's ability to succeed? Or can you provide examples where effectively managed organizational politics help a company to undergo a smoother transition or make more intelligent decisions? Just as every society reflects cultural values like language, dress, and food, so too does every organization have its own culture. Some companies like Google are very laid back. The company allows employees to bring their dogs to work, ride skateboards in the hallways, and other companies like IBM require employees to adhere to a strict dress code and leave the skateboards at home. Yet both companies are very successful in their own right. However, when each company embarks on organizational change, the culture is very much a player in what they can and cannot do. Organizations differ because their ultimate goals differ. Some organizations are small by nature or small by design. Using the same thought process as you did for recognizing the different structures and organizations around you, think about the unique differences in those organizations. Why are they different? Size, goals, environmental factors that restrict their growth. For instance, contrast a real estate company with an insurance company. The real estate company is constantly looking for new customers, buyers and sellers. The new products, houses and commercial properties, to sell. It may choose to stay small or to go with a nationwide conglomerate. The environmental factors that are likely to influence it are the state of the national economy or the culture of the local economy. Many external factors are out of its control. The employees of the company must respond quickly to potential sales, or they simply won't make any money. This type of organization must be creative in the way it generates business and in the type of systems it uses. On the other hand, the insurance company has relatively stable customers. People sign up with their insurer to pay their premiums on a regular basis. Although customers may come and go, the turnover is fairly small. Because most state governments require people to carry insurance, the agent has a stable stream of income for premiums. Although the parent company may suffer large losses from sudden influx of customer claims, the small agency is not as heavily influenced by environmental factors. This organization doesn't have to devise ways of ingeniously using or generating data, and its systems needs are mundane. Both of these businesses are small and entrepreneurial, but they must respond to their employees' customers and potential customers in very different ways. Each of them has different business processes that must be used to meet goals of staying in business. Looking at disruptive technologies. Remember typewriters? If you're under the age of 30, you may not ever have even seen one. They are ubiquitous in the business world 40 years ago. How many of you seen one lately? Did they fade away because they weren't a good idea when they were first invented? They weren't a good product? They didn't serve a need? As we all know, the answers to all those questions is a resounding no. They were a great invention, a great product, and served a real need. But they were supplemented by a disruptive technology called computers. There are many examples of how new technologies disrupt old ones. Look at Table 3.1 in the text. How many of the winners and losers do you remember? Companies must continually adapt and change or go out of business. It's almost that simple. Organizational structures. The point is that every group of people is an organization. The interesting question you could ask yourself would be, how would the work look and function without some kind of organization? Table 3.2 of the text shows some common organizational structures Think about your own experiences in your workplace or your daily life and try to list some organizations that fit into each of the categories. They're all around you and affect you in so many ways. Remember, just as organizations affect you in many different ways, so too do you affect the organizations. Would you consider the same organizational structure for a softball team as you would for a theater production group? Although there would be some similarities, the two groups would probably have some major differences. An automobile dealership would have some similarities to a department store. Both of them sell products, and yet they would have major structural differences. Organizations that enter into collaborative partnerships tend to seek out companies with similar structures. It's much easier for the employees to work together if they aren't required to learn a whole different work structure on top of learning new tasks. The bottom line, organizations and information systems influence each other. Each organization shares common characteristics that an information system can enhance. On the other hand, each organization has unique characteristics that should be taken into account when incorporating technology. The organization should determine how the technology is incorporated and not let the information system totally dictate the organizational structure. Change is the only constant in the relationship between information systems and organizations. As technology evolves and changes, its introduction into organizations requires changes in the firm's infrastructure and the services it can provide to its employees, customers, and suppliers. Years ago, information systems consisted of a huge mainframe computer with a few terminals connected to it. You had to schedule a specific time to use the computer, if your company even had one at all. All data were kept on one machine, and in some respects the data was available to whoever could access them. When personal computers were introduced into the early 1980s, it became the norm for most people to have individual computing islands on their desks. The computers were not even connected to each other, and if you wanted to connect or exchange data or information, you had to somehow get the data from your desk to the other person's desk. This wasn't very easy. Now it seems we've come full circle in some ways. We've combined the storage and data processing on a central machine with personal computing available on stripped-down desktops. The data are available to anyone who can use them or has authorized access through the network, with links literally all over the world. The text discusses two major types of theories about how information systems affect the organizations. One, economic theories, and two, behavioral theories. The economic impacts. It's sometimes cheaper to hire a computer than it is to hire a person. We may not like the idea that machines can replace human beings, but when you think about it, they have been doing this for thousands of years. To better illustrate this concept, let's take a look at how a company can find it cheaper to use an information system to develop and disseminate a human resources policy for employee dress codes. The HR assistant may write the first draft of the policy and give it to an HR director on paper. The director will review it and make changes. The assistant then must incorporate the changes and reprint the document. Wait, if there is an information system, the assistant can submit the draft to the director electronically, and the director can then make changes to the electronic version of the file and return it to the assistant. Already we've saved part of a tree. Of course, others in the organization must review the new dress code policy. The proposed policy can be printed in 15 copies. A person can manually send the copies out, track who they went to and when, and then track all the changes made to the proposal. Or the proposed policy can be sent electronically to reviewers who will electronically collaborate on necessary changes. Each of the reviewers can see it in real time, what the others think and the changes they would like to make. We've saved another part of a tree in reduced paper use, but we have also saved a lot of time and human effort. Once the policy is set, it has to be resent to each employee. We could do that through old method of printing hundreds of copies, or we could send the policy to each person electronically, maybe through email. Everyone would have a personal copy stored on the computer. There, is no need to print it out on the paper because it will be stored electronically and can be referenced whenever it is convenient. As employees acknowledge receipt of the policy via the email, HR department knows they received it. So what about the people who do not have their own personal computers? You could post the new policy to the company intranet, which would be available to all employees whenever they find it convenient. Again, time and resources are cut drastically through the use of an information system. If the policy needs to be revised, the same process can be used to make and send out messages. The revised policy can be posted on the intranet for all to see. This is just one example of how technology is helping organizations reduce their costs of doing business. The transaction cost theory supports the idea that through technology, businesses can reduce their costs of processing transactions with the same emphasis and zeal that they try to reduce their production costs. We mentioned earlier that many of the job cuts taking place in businesses are now affecting white-collar managerial positions. That follows the agency theory of economic impact brought on by information systems. Now, one manager can oversee 10 employees, otherwise known as agents, rather than 4 employees because information is cheaper and easier to disseminate. Rather than 5 layers of management in an organization, information technology allows companies to flatten the layers to 3, maybe even 2. Here's how. IT pushes decision-making rights lower in the organization because lower-level employees receive the information they need to make decisions without supervision. Managers now receive so much more accurate information on time, they become much faster at making decisions, so fewer managers are required. Management costs decline as a percentage of revenues, and the hierarchy becomes much more efficient. Post-industrial organizations. The post-industrial theories also support the notion that IT should flatten hierarchies. Here's why. Professional workers tend to be self-managing, and decision-making should become more decentralized as knowledge and information become widespread throughout the firm. IT may encourage task force networked organizations in which groups of professionals come together, face-to-face or electronically, for short periods of time to accomplish a specific task. Once the task is accomplished, the individuals join other task force. Technology makes virtual organizations more feasible, cheaper, and easier to set up and tear down than before. If you had a small group of people from each functional area of the company collaborating on a new production method, you can bring them together, decide on the new methodology, and then return them to their regularly assigned units. Let's say your company decides to develop a new method of shipping hammers. You would need to draw people from the production department and shipping department, the packaging department, and the accounting department to help develop the new procedures. Without an information system, you would need to have a clerical worker available to record and send out all the information to everyone before and after the meetings. You would have to set up a time and place for team members to meet. Scheduling everyone's time is often a nightmare. Because of the political nature of organizations and people, which we've previously discussed, most of those assigned to this team would probably have to be middle managers. If your company had the proper information systems, much of the hassle and expense of this scenario could be eliminated. By using technology, most of the collaboration and communication throughout the organization, top to bottom, side to side, could be accomplished quicker and cheaper. One of the biggest benefits to this method would be the fact that the decision-making process of this committee can be pushed to lower levels and management can check progress electronically. Perhaps the managers wouldn't be as concerned about delegating responsibility because they can keep an eye on the community throughout the process and monitor its progress easier. Everyone in the entire organization can have access to the work of the committee. What about those people not physically located in the same place? No problem. Electronically, they have the same access to the process as everyone else. Understanding organizational resistance to change. Information systems are closely intertwined with an organization's structure, culture, and business process. New systems disrupt established patterns of work and power relationships, so there's often considerable resistance to them, and when they are introduced. The complex relationship between information systems, organizational performance, and decision-making must be carefully managed. Technology doesn't automatically transform organizations. There is no magic wand that companies can wave that will solve all their problems just because they installed the latest information system. People using technology efficiently and effectively, however, can transform organizations. Technology can enhance communications up and down the organization and from one department to another, and on the same managerial level. As our dress code policy example shows, communications are much faster and better using technology. The lines of communication are shorter, clearer, and more concise. The behavioral theory of the integration of information systems in an organization says that the political structure of an organization changes through access to information. The common status symbol in an organization used to be the corner office. Now, the political status symbol is how much information a person has access to. The example used earlier of posting personnel policies to the company intranet is just one small example of how businesses are using network technology to reduce costs and enhance their business processes. Business-to-business commerce is growing at a tremendous pace because of the cost savings the internet allows. The internet provides an open platform technology that allows transaction processing between businesses at much cheaper costs and provides an easy-to-use interface. The innovative ways organizations are using the intranet, internet, and extranets to improve their business processes and lower costs is simply fascinating. Even government bureaucracies are getting into the act. The U.S. Postal Office is facing a severe threat to its core business. More and more businesses and individuals are turning to email and to web to correspond with each other. And as email continues to grow as a substitute for snail mail, the post office must find innovative ways of using the internet to gain new business. It's doing so by selling postage on the internet, and it now offers electronic bill pay services. Companies can send bills to their customers electronically, and individuals and businesses can pay all their bills over the new internet-based service. The integration of an information system into the organization naturally causes change for the organization. Sounds simple enough. What isn't so simple to manage is the very fact that many people do not readily accept change, no matter how much technology you employ. It is still the organization's people who will make or break it. Remember the triangle introduced in Chapter 1 when we discussed hardware, software, and PERSware? It's back. Change can be so traumatic to some organizations that they find it easier to keep doing business the same old way for as long as they can get away with it. That's why some organizations seem to be stuck doing business the way they did in 1969. The bottom line, for some job, it's better to employ technology than to employ a person. Technology can reduce costs and increase the amount of information people have access to. The changes brought about by the introduction of new technology and new methods must be managed carefully. No successful manager can lose sight of the effect change will have on the people of the organization. Companies need to tailor their information systems to the needs of the organization instead of letting the wonders of technology drive the organization. Google, Amazon, eBay, the giants of the internet, they're successful and make loads of money. They could easily rest on their laurels, kick back, and relax. If they are so successful, why do they keep working so hard to continually introduce new products and services and improve the old ones? Because someone, somewhere, is trying to take their place and become the new giant. These companies must constantly work to keep their competitive advantage, and they are using information systems to do so.
That concludes Part 1 of the Chapter 3 lecture. Please locate Part 2 to complete the lecture. As always, please post any questions in the instructor discussion forum in the course.